Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cameron-A-Rama and our trip to Pandora. I am Al Schwartz. With me, as always, is John Bernard.
Hey, it's me.
And joining us once more, our old pal Joon Kim.
We are not in Kansas anymore. We are on Podcasta.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's your Stephen Lang, huh?
No, I didn't even try. It's very loosey goosey right now.
I guess if I was going to do an Avatar, impression, it would have to be Stephen Lang, right?
Right. I mean, he's the only guy I like in this.
I think you could do a Giovanni Ribisi impersonation.
Right. But you need a putter, so like the space work of it would not come through on a podcast.
Look at all that cheddar.
Oh, I don't know. I think we got pretty lucky with him. He's doing a lot in this. He's really adding extra to every single line he has, which I don't know. I think maybe everyone should have done that.
I'd agree. I'd agree.
I don't know. You raise a point right off the bat there. I'm like, yeah, the villains here, Verbisi and Lang, are the ones putting the most mustard onto their performances. And I do feel like the movie could have used more of that. However, they're still not that memorable of villains, I feel like. Maybe it's just that,
No.
Ribisi has to live in the shadow of Reiser within the Cameron filmography.
Oh, geez, yeah.
So wide.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, Stephen Lang, this character is nothing. I'm waiting for something that makes this character, I don't know, have a dimension to him. And he never comes.
I mean, does anybody have any dimension in this movie?
That's the bigger problem, I think. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's Avatar. We don't love this movie. I think is going to be the thing that you'll find going forward here. We are recording this in sort of a precarious way. This is about a week before the new one comes out. When this episode is released, the new one will have been released, and everyone will have seen it. And so our conversation on this film is not influenced by having seen The Way of Water. So perhaps it will be naive in some ways. Perhaps
it's the way it should be. It's the way it should be.
Probably, right? This is the honest way to do it. We won't be caught in the hype of how much we love Avatar: The Way of Water.
And if the sequel is good, what a study of contrast it can be.
Yeah, well, this movie's not. Is this movie bad?
No,
it might be bad. I don't like. I honestly don't know.
To me, like, it's the most immaculately made, like, something that's like couldn't be less inspirational to me. It's such a weird feeling because I was really hyped for this movie because it's a James Cameron movie. You've been doing a whole series on him because how awesome he is, and I went in 2009 with that in mind. I even went to that, what is it? That 6-minute IMAX preview that they did like a few weeks before release, or it wasn't a few weeks, it was like months before the movie came out, like just to take a look at it. And so that's how invested I was in being excited. But
yeah.
I mean, I saw this in the theater and remember being impressed with it, and then never watched it again until 2 to 3 months ago. They did the big re-release in 3D, and I took my stepson to it because I knew that he had seen it and kind of liked it. And I honestly, coming up this week, I felt like I should probably watch it again because it's already just the details of everything. I can't remember people's names. I can't remember the actual plot of it very well. Like, it just drains off my brain like water. The Way of Water? Yeah. And that happened twice now.
God, that's all three of us are going to have the exact same sort of vanilla and
general take.
Yeah. Just it's not great. Not entirely sure why. Yeah. It's similar. Yeah. I saw it in theaters in 2009. I was like, that was pretty something. Watched it as soon as it came out on home video and was like, oh, no, it was not something really. I have nothing for this film and I'll never watch it again. And I didn't. And then I also watched the IMAX version this year because I kind of wanted to give it every chance. You know, we were already
Right,
doing
right.
a Cameron-A-Rama. I was like, I'm sure if I go to the IMAX and watch it, the magic will be back there. And it wasn't this time. It was
I
not
decided to
present.
I decided to skip out on the IMAX version. I went to go see the 4DX version instead, so I could get the whole, the show of moving seats and water spritzing on my face.
Well, maybe that would have been the way, because if maybe you just kind of have to have a more extreme viewing experience every time.
I don't know. I came out of it with the same reactions before.
I'm going to do Way of Water in the full 4DX, which I hope for that one, it's not just like a spritz of water. Like they project it in a wave pool that I will be floating in the whole time. On an inner tube, perhaps.
I don't know if I have the speed, but I'm gonna go. I got specific tickets to go see it about an hour away from me in order to see it in high frame rate IMAX, 3D. It won't be 4DX, but it'll be that.
I have made the decision. I'm going to see this in the most anonymous theater possible. I'm just going to go to the closest one and not make a big deal out of it, and just see it at a convenient time.
Like, take that, James. Take
I
that, James Cameron.
I don't care. I'm not spending $50 on this. I don't have,
Right.
and I'm not moving my day around it.
I don't mean that as a good for you for sticking it in Cameron's eye or anything. I just mean we'll have a diverse set of experiences with which to contrast next week. And I mean, that's why I did the whole thing. I wanted to give it the best shot I could. But
right,
it's not a movie I dislike. It's not a movie I like, though. Like I said, it is certainly a movie. It's got a beginning, it's got a middle, it's got an end. There are some stuff that happens. There are characters. None of them are very unique. You don't really remember the characters much. So here, maybe I can throw together a hypothesis for why this one doesn't click the way that other Cameron joints do, because a lot of Cameron's movies have this sort of not exactly, I mean, he's not Christopher Nolan when it comes to plotting, right? He's a straightforward, it works in archetypes when it comes to the characters a lot. And he just executes at a very high level. And also generally there's a big hook that he nails, that Terminator has, the Terminator, or the T-1000 as the case may be, that is something fairly unique within the sci-fi action genre. And Aliens, got to piggyback on the xenomorph from Giger and Alien Part 1, but also, got to throw in the Alien Queen.
Yeah, now there's hundreds of them. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and the Colonial Marine stuff, which I think now is an archetype that we see in every video game in addition to movie, but was more of an innovation at the time. Mm-hmm. Even Titanic, mixing the full-blown Romeo and Juliet movie into the gigantic disaster movie, which, like we went into in that episode, that the disaster movie, when it finally hits after an hour and a half, really pays off there. And here, the big hook is what? It's the avatars, right? It's the idea that you're remote piloting.
Yeah, and they're doing a Dances with Wolves narrative. That's a familiar narrative that has been proven to work. And I mean, I don't know. It's not like he's got a depth of really deep characters in his films, but the characters all hit on a primal level in a way that these ones don't. Like Carter Burke in Aliens is not a particularly nuanced villain, but man, he's an all-time great villain.
There's no Hudson here, and there's no Miles Dyson.
No, the characters feel larger than life in all his films, and that's been an advantage pretty much every single one of them until this one, where these characters, I mean, they just feel broad, and I never get on board with any of them, and it's odd, honestly. Like they seem like the shape of characters that I should be really connecting with.
Yeah, I think it feels like Michelle Hudson, or not Hudson, Michelle Rodriguez is not the Hudson here, but she's clearly like...
Well, she's the Vasquez.
In the vague, yes, she's in the shape, the vague outline of a Vasquez. That's the cookie cutter we're working with. And it also seems like Sigourney Weaver's character is sort of going to be the, like, Lindsay in the Abyss mold of the, like, hard-nosed boss lady that the underlings are a little afraid of and resentful. And maybe a touch horny for, but not as striking of a performance. And I don't know that I wouldn't say that's because Sigourney Weaver's just not as good of a performer as Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio.
Antonio.
Um,
It's so weird. Like I was talking about this movie recently to somebody that was watching it for the first time, and she was saying like, "Why is this so bad? Like this is Sigourney Weaver. Why is she so bad in this?" And it's this weird thing of like, this feels less like a James Cameron movie, and this more feels more like a workman's that was clearly inspired by James Cameron's tropes, as opposed to the real deal himself this time.
I mean, I got to think some of that is just that the immense technical requirements and preparation
Oh, yeah.
and just all the things going on set here, all the blue screen, all the motion capture, all the all the various filmmaking techniques in play. Just they take so much attention and consideration and timing and preparation that any sort of organic life of this thing kind of just gets choked out. It's a Phantom Menace thing, but it must be acknowledged that we're kind of in the minority on this. I feel like there's certainly a lot of people for whom this movie is a humongous success,
I,
most
I
successful
I
movie
don't
ever made.
know. That's the weird paradox of this movie. Like Al was saying earlier about like this movie exists in like a neither here nor there place for him,
Yeah.
right? Like this movie's like both the most successful movie ever made, and also its running joke in terms of film discussion circles has been that it's the most forgettable, in terms of the most successful movie ever made. It's also one that's most famous for being so forgettable. Like the meme is that it's the hugest hit that left no cultural mark. Its cultural mark is that it didn't leave a cultural mark because
right.
there's no all that's left now is like the Disney World theme park attraction,
Right.
but otherwise there's no like there was a video game that I don't think anybody thinks about. I think there were some novels, but nothing latched on like since 2009.
Which is conspicuous since 2009 was right when, you know, giant extended universes took over all of pop
Right,
culture. And
right.
this is poised, it is built to be a launching pad for exactly that. And it got no air on that launch. And except for now, 12 years later, we're going to take another jab at it.
Which of course like it kind of loops around. It speaks less to the movie and more to the way like the status of blockbusters now, that they've gotten so sloppy that I think people that didn't like the movie very much in 2009 are now spinning back around going, oh, this movie slaps, it turns out,
Yeah, it's getting a big reappraisal.
because at least it functions just on a base level. It was just like it's functional, unlike a lot of blockbusters these days.
Yeah, I mean, coming in after Phase 4 of the MCU, I'm not really surprised that people are hyped up for Avatar 2 at this point. It's something different again. It's a new thing again, and
Never underestimate James
yeah,
Cameron. He just
Yeah.
he's made this kind of long wait between one and two work for him, unintentionally or not.
And to put a finer point on that, even it's Marvel Phase 4. It's the entire DCU.
Right.
It's the Star
collapsing.
Wars sequel trilogy.
Right.
I guess the Star Trek reboot never had quite the penetration that those examples might have, but people don't.
It was a thing.
That could have been a thing. Yeah, I mean that could have been a bigger thing.
There's others. There's the Fast and the Furious is probably counting in this. There's all these things.
Yeah, I just haven't seen those enough to speak
of course,
on.
And of course, this is the year that Top Gun Maverick came out and basically became kind of a little bit of a precursor for Avatar. I don't know how well this sequel is going to do, but Maverick might still top it. But it is kind of it's like a reminder of like, oh, this is what people go to movies for.
Yeah.
Well, and I think Maverick or Top Gun has a little more than functionality going for it. It's got personality in a way that Avatar lacks, I think.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
And well, so the other thing is why I guess what I'm more interested in getting into here, because we all kind of agree, and it's like you said, pretty well trod ground in film circles, that these are not great iconic characters, that the story is not innovating in any particularly interesting way. So, but what it has is this sort of unique sci-fi concept, and also one that seems very timely in as much as it's very video game centric. Like as video games have moved a lot closer to the center of culture over the last 20 years, this is an entire giant sci-fi epic about gamers,
Basically.
saving the world. It's got a little bit of Ready Player One in it, right?
Yeah, I was surprised to be reminded of that film when I saw this again. It's that it logging into a different reality kind of thing. I mean, it's not presented in those terms here, but it kind of is. It's kind of the same deal of well, you go into a booth or a tube, and then your mind is transmitted somewhere else. That's sort of an interesting transhumanism kind of idea. There's a lot of interesting ideas in this that don't really amount to interesting me. Uh,
Right.
and that is one of them.
There could be something very interesting there, though, about how that technological transhumanism aspect of it is sort of funneled into this, I guess, like anti-technology, like almost fetishization of native people and cultures and their deep connection to the soil and the soul of the earth and all that.
Yeah, they sort of exist separately, though.
It's Rachel Dolezal's favorite film.
Oh yeah, I mean, he was in Blueface, I guess. That's the whole thing.
We can use this as a moment to go into the in terms of the cool ideas that never really get expanded upon. If you want to get a taste of what Cameron had in mind, there is the 90s. He wrote a treatment for this movie back in the 90s when this was an idea that he had. It's 114 pages. I skimmed through it a little bit, but it's a lot to read. And it's really just him going on, just kind of casually writing up, all right, so this is where the story goes, all right, but on the side, this is what's going on with the Hallelujah Mountains. It's just a guy. It's written like James Cameron, just talking to you at a bar almost, with little bits of dialogue here and there, but it has stuff that really goes more into the idea of the avatars and the fact that there's details about a guy that died while he was in an avatar state, and he's he's just a lifeless form. He's basically PTSD'd because he experienced death, but now all he has left is now this husk of a human body. There's stuff about
do some Black Mirror shit in this. That
right.
would be fun, right?
I mean, there's lots of cool ideas in it, but this movie only goes in the straight line of that Dances with Wolves narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And even that should be more. Even that should have more input, more impact for me. Just the environmental messaging and the colonialism stuff in this feels like it is strongly felt. It's not generic, or it comes off generic, but it also comes off very purposeful. Like there are ideas that he's trying to articulate here, and the overwhelming feeling I get watching it is I also have seen Dances with Wolves. It is just overly familiar stuff. It's I mean, Dances with Wolves is the touchdown. It could just as easily be The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, or a bunch of other things about
which is a movie I like. So I'm not even against, even in terms of the white savior trope, I'm not against those on the face of it automatically. If it's cool, it's cool. And this movie for some reason just elicits eye rolls from me.
Yeah, I mean, there's something. I mean, the white boy goes native and joins the Viet Cong narrative is something we have seen, that especially in sort of prestige picture fashion before, and I think there's a reason why that narrative kind of works when you divorce it from the specific racial elements of it. Just
they don't do that here.
Actually. No, they don't. But I mean, they invent their own race.
Mm-hmm. Sort of.
I
mean,
barely,
it's the Native American.
It's true.
It seems very on the nose about that.
It's space engines on space rainforest planet.
Yeah, and they've got their horses and their bow and arrows, and their beadwork. Anyway, but the point is just that there is something inherently dramatic about the one of the oppressors having a change of heart and joining the underdogs like that. That is inherently dramatic.
Not unlike Titanic, it's just sort of a very familiar story that should just work. It's a proven story.
Yeah,
and
even when it's even when it's a Bad News Bears type story, that there's always the star player that defects from the Yankees to join the Bad News Bears and give them a shot. It's just
I kind of wish he'd created this world to tell a bad news bears narrative. Actually, yeah.
The heart tree was their rec center they had to save with a game of intergalactic softball.
I'd watch it.
Stephen
I
Lang would
guess
be a good evil coach too on the other side. So
that's
yeah,
pretty much all he is. Like it's like you're kind of waiting for him to do something especially dastardly to like make this villain more memorable, but no, he's just kind of a growly jerk from start to finish. Like,
he's doing his job, honestly. Like,
yeah,
He's never not a villain. Like you see him
right.
and he is the villain. Which for like a cartoon, I think that works fine. But for this, 2.5 hour, epic, I feel like it needs a little bit more
Is that
than
all?
just the. Well, I watched the extended version, which is almost 3 hours, but I think the theatrical cut is 2 hours and 30 minutes. I think.
It's long. I think it's 240. I think
Okay.
it's plenty of film, no question. And a movie that has these aims, that's the kind of movie that should be long. I don't mind that necessarily. If I were engaged in it, I wouldn't mind the length.
No, it's not.
It's certainly going for epic. And for that length, though, you think that we would get more than the first draft surface layer of these character types.
I mean, should we go through these characters individually and say why they don't work? God.
No. I mean, look, I think we touched on Ribisi already and Lang. If you want to talk about Sigourney Weaver, we could, but I'm more interested in drilling down. Sure. What's like I said, it seems like it's a first draft of, okay, this is sort of the Lindsay from the Abyss type, and it never really went any further than that I could tell.
So I have specific ideas about why Jake Sully doesn't work.
Okay.
Yeah. I want you.
I like the hook of him being a twin brother of a soldier who was trained for the Avatar program, and he is a paraplegic. I think that's a really strong base to start from. Like,
sort of
gets us into the movie very quickly.
It's sort of the old trick of being like, well, I don't want to make a scientist the protagonist. Right. Wouldn't want some hoity-toity book learning type to be the main. Yeah,
it worked for The Rock, and Nicholas scientist in The Rock.
Well, I mean, it's a move he's pulled before. There's sort
with
of
the Abyss. Certainly, we talked about that.
I mean,
but there's also a real utility to that. Oh yeah, in that it gives the scientist characters somebody to explain shit to, for our sake. I suppose that's kind of true. That's even kind of true of the Jack Dawson character in Titanic. Now, when you mentioned him, that it gives us a reason to exposit all of this old timey, high society nonsense. Too.
Yeah, I mean, it's another tested and proven method, of kind of increasing our engagement with an actor or a character. It does not work in this case. And I think a big part of this is Sam Worthington. I'm sorry, this performance does not work. This is not a charismatic leading performance in a movie. This is John Carter stuff, or even that's probably being generous to Jake Sully. This guy is not getting the job done, and I think the proof of that is that you have not seen him in a movie since this, and that combined with the design of these things, which is another thing I'd like to get into.
That's something I want to talk about too.
The way the
do you have any
avatars
other
work.
Thoughts on? I mean, look, I was going to defend.
I
was going to defend Sam Worthington a little, but I was going to say something along the lines of, well, the performance doesn't not work, which is so backhanded that I feel like I'm almost digging his grave further with it. But I mean, and I saw him be very good on a TV show in the last year. So I mean, I don't think he's terrible, but
I mean, I'm going off this in Terminator Salvation, which is a death hand of cards, if ever there were one. That's.
I actually thought he was okay in Terminator Salvation, but I haven't seen that. I don't like that movie. I haven't seen it in forever, so I can't really say.
It's true.
That.
It's true. I couldn't really tell you much about that performance at this point.
I think I recall after seeing that, I thought, I think that he might be a pretty good in the actual James Cameron movie. And I think having rewatched the movie recently, I think he's okay. I think he's about as good as everybody else in the movie, which is to say,
fair point.
Not great.
Bad.
And in this case, the writing, the writing just generally doesn't help anybody in this movie throughout. You said
He's as
something
good as anybody else, which is to say, not elevating the material.
right. You said something earlier about this feeling like a first draft. To me, this first, having read the longer scriptment, this feels like a one that got drafted to death in terms of there was a grander, more interesting story that eventually got whittled down to just pure plot function.
Usually, that's what you're supposed to do with these things. And,
Right. And I feel like that kind of got overdone because he was so focused on getting this movie made, on time, on budget, and on a reasonable runtime. So it's just basically the bare fundamentals and nothing else.
Well, he got to give up on all of those names with Way of Water, so
Yeah, well,
forget
that's
about runtime. Forget about
yeah,
time. Forget about budget. Forget about
right.
runtime.
That's
Like,
what that's kind of what, like, even though I'm not a fan of this movie, like I want to see how he goes now that Avatar is a proven entity, and now let's see if he can actually go wild. And I've read some of the reactions to the new one so far, and I don't know if I can trust them until I see.
no, I
No.
do not trust them. But,
yeah, no.
Right.
but it's got
I'm
it's pretty much got nowhere to go with, but up for me.
well,
Hopefully.
it's longer.
Hopefully.
It's familiar
Yeah.
at this point. I mean, if it's basically the same as if it's as good as this film, if it is as successful as the original, I'm gonna like it less. I would say.
Yeah, probably. It's like that's
know,
it after
uh-huh.
after 12, 13 years.
Yeah. The other thing about Jake Sully that I wanted to get to is that he is this is the character experiencing everything, and man, like there are twists and turns for this guy on paper. Like I had forgotten, for example, that he basically informs on the Na'vi.
I was going to talk.
yeah.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. Yeah.
For like an hour of the film. Like he is telling Miles Quaritch, the Stephen Lang character, about
you knew his name. You knew his name.
yeah, about
Is that
all.
real? You didn't just make that up?
No, Miles Quaritch, of course, and Parker Selfridge is the Giovanni. I remember all the names. I don't, not all. I don't remember the West Studi and CCH Pounder Navi, but and Norm. Remember Norm? We'll talk about Norm. But
of course,
yeah. And so this is the problem. I feel like for Jake Sully, it should be easy to have empathy for this guy and to kind of feel like we're slipping into his skin, much like an Avatar. This is the audience character. This is the guy we're supposed to be feeling, and there's so many things that happen to him that we should be feeling. We should be feeling, how exciting it is to have legs again after not having walked. We should be thrilled by seeing a world as vibrant and amazing as Pandora that we never imagined it could have existed. We should feel this sort of growing respect for these for the Na'vi, and this incredible sense of betrayal and violation for helping Quaritch destroy their homeworld, and the need to redeem himself because of that, and that he's got this big speech at the end. This should be the emotional linchpin of the whole film, where he prays to Awa.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about how we as human beings, we have killed our mother Earth, and we have no God in our life as a result. And this is the catharsis moment, and none of it lands. None of this lands in this film. It is all just surface level stuff. It's just narrative. Nothing about this character works. It's
well, this is what I meant too. I mean, this may be a splitting a hair, but what June was talking about earlier, like, yeah, it's not that the plot feels like a first draft level. The plot feels ironed out to, functionality, which I don't even mean as pejorative as that sounds. But what I meant was the characters feel like first draft sketches of characters that never got filled in with the added depth and nuance and just life that Cameron character types usually get filled in with by these performers, including Sigourney Weaver in a prior instance. Like,
right.
We know that some of these people are capable of it. I know that West Studi and CCH Pounder can pull that off if they had anything to do.
That's the thing. Like, if you stick like somebody proven, like a Jake Gyllenhaal in here, I don't know that actually fixes anything. Just because of how little impact Sigourney Weaver is able to make with this role.
I think one of the things I read about this in the past or more recently was that Cameron offered this to Matt Damon, but Matt Damon just turned it down for whatever reason, and he's regretted it ever since.
Yeah,
But I kind of wonder if what 2008 2009 era movie star Matt Damon
it's
being
a
in
good
this
Matt
role,
Damon.
right,
Yeah,
everything else being the same, would Matt Damon, instead of Sam Worthington, elevated this at all? And I think he could, just by the nature of being Matt Damon.
I'd prefer it
It,
for sure.
I mean,
For definitely,
it couldn't hurt anything for
right,
sure. And I think you do why Damon might be a really good choice for that actually, is that one of his strengths as an actor is that he has chemistry with just about everybody.
hmm
And you need really strong chemistry to sell this romance through the blue cat person CGI shit. Which Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana, I mean, Saldana now especially is like the biggest pro in the industry at acting through all
right.
these layers of prosthetics. But
Yeah,
Like
she sells the
Saldana
Star
is
Lord
good.
thing way better. That works much better. Yeah.
I think Saldana is good in this. It's just that I don't like any of these people.
No.
right, yeah, and so this circles us back to the thing which I think is at the heart of my antipathy for this film, which is, and it's the big sci-fi hook of this is the Na'vi, and I think the Na'vi are a bad, unappealing alien design.
Yes, I agree.
I can't even say it's bad. I just don't like it. It's
Yeah,
like the rendering,
You're
like the
supposed to like
achievement,
it.
right? The achievement of everything, like to create them, is immaculate. Like it's 2009 VFX, and I think it still holds up incredibly well now.
yeah,
But
but the VFX to make the Autobots look the way they do is incredible.
right,
But you don't like any of those. You
right,
don't want
right.
to hang out with
But
any of those fucking asshole robots.
Mm-hmm.
but
I
so like yeah, it's like nothing, like so much work to put into something like in a design that, like, you can tell that he's trying to hit that thing of like he wants them to be alien. He doesn't want to hit that uncanny valley. So they need to be like blue, super tall, wide cat people, but they also need to be humanoid. So they can't be too alien. They can't go District 9 with it because
Right.
they need to be able to perform like one-to-one performance translation.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up in the this these humans going like cats, and it just makes me go, oh.
Well, there's that, and it does avoid the uncanny valley because
Yeah.
it's not human stuff. But like I said, I think there's a couple of design choices that I, with the perfect clarity of hindsight, can sort of glom onto now. Even though I'm not a creature designer by any stretch, but I think the decision to make them giant, for example, is something that I see you kind of want to do to make them more alien. And so it's a sort of easy way to make them more alien, but also more human. You can put them in a scene with a human character, and you see the difference between them, and why being in the Avatar program is an empowering thing because you get this sort of super body,
And so that one of them could fight a big mech armor later in the movie.
right? So you can fight big mech armors.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem with that is just visually, the Na'vi narratively are this enormous, underdog, technologically inferior race fighting back against the oppressors, but they're just so much bigger than the oppressors that like are somewhere in our lizard brains. We have a hard time looking at a 12 foot tall cat person and a 10 foot tall mech and processing that the cat person's actually the underdog in this fight. That normally the way, especially sci-fi action, I think works is that we are more on the side of humans using our ingenuity and technology to take down bigger, more imposing creatures.
I mean, yeah, it's an. I that's one of many problems. I feel like
Right, I'm saying this is one of several issues, but and it's not like it totally fucks with you or anything, but I think it just introduces an element of dissonance somewhere in the backs of my brain.
It's probably the reason that you don't really see. I'm sure there's lots of reasons, but like one of the reasons you don't really see just a regular human and a tall Na'vi interacting very much at all in this movie, unless one of them is in a mech suit.
Right. And when you do see that, like even late in the movie, when you do see that, it's like jarring to be like, oh, yeah, right.
It's when Neytiri is holding human Jake Sully's body, like
Right.
creating like a little baby. You're
Yes,
like a
a
child,
baby.
a baby.
But also, I'm gonna fuck him. Like, it's that's
Well,
another element of
yes.
distance. It's both on action and sexually speaking.
Yeah, the sex stuff in this. Man, he's so horny for these things.
Especially the dragons.
Yeah, all the weird sex stuff that they're doing in this is, I mean, it feels like the point of the film. Like, this is the thing that was exciting about this, to a large part of the creative. I've seen interviews with him talking about this sort of obliquely, and just that the design was intended to be very appealing to people. Like,
You've read that excerpt of James Cameron describing Neytiri, right?
Yes.
It was like for Playboy or something, and it was a little bit too telling.
Like, we wanted all the men working on the film to think she was attractive, stuff like that.
You're going to be drooling over it.
Yeah.
Like a teenage boy's going to be drooling over this.
And I am not. I am not drooling over this.
No.
Or these people, these cat folk. And I think it
takes some Oscar caliber work to make Zoe Saldana unattractive. And they pull it off.
Yeah, well, these things feel like fetish objects. Like I feel like I'm looking at pornography for a fetish I don't share. Sometimes with them, not porn, but
who says movies aren't horny anymore?
This is a horny movie, and I feel like I'm looking at I don't know, it's like cartoon anthropomorphized like dogs with like human proportions, and they those creepy animal kind of like sex things that you see sometimes, like furry cartoons.
Yeah, they have like 2/3 human proportions. It's just somehow even weirder.
It's like he's a dog and he's hairy, but he's he's bipedal and he's got abs.
Yes,
it's like that sort of thing. And it's a whole movie of those. You're looking at those for 2.5 hours. And then surprisingly it gets more into it, with like their weird hair braids that they insert into other animals and stuff,
their dongles.
And it's just it's not a good time for me.
Right. No, I think you're right in that it feels like a huge reason for the movie to exist, probably because it is about the only unique sci-fi aspect of this story that's otherwise very tropey. It feels like the thing that really sets this apart from any other sci-fi action humans fight aliens thing. So it's even more pronounced for that. Plus, they make it very explicit that it's a sex act that they also use to do to animals to tame them.
To break them, basically, right?
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, I was struck by this. I didn't remember that in 2009, like taking note of that. But this time I was like, so weird. Basically, like, it's like if you have your dog, but you actually have to like hump your dog to establish dominance.
To underline it, like right after he does it, Jake Sully is just like, "Yeah, you're mine now." It's like, oh.
And you have to get consent if you want to ride the birds. You don't have that, and it's specifically a thing with the not the birds, the dragons. If you want to ride those, that you need their consent. I guess not with the horses though. Like it's those. It's about breaking. So there's. It's fudgy. It's odd.
You have to wrestle them with them first against their will for a bit.
Yeah. There's dominance play. There's
It just digs into the farther you go, the more fetishes you find.
Yeah. It is striking, and it's something I don't see people talk about with this film. Now, granted, people don't talk about this film, but
except for how much they don't talk about it.
Yeah,
that's what they talk about.
But it is a striking aspect of this movie that I feel I'm curious if this is going to get expanded on in the new film. Like, are we going to get more? Well, fish now. I don't know.
I mean, it's how they function. So I assume like
they're going to be riding dolphins around.
They're just going to do it and expect that you just go with it. I assume.
I mean, I think it's sort of clear why you don't hear people talking about this angle that much.
And
It's a little hard to parse, as you can see. It's also it's not fun. Like, I don't like this conversation we've been having at all.
Yeah, we can get off this. This is yeah, but it's a thing. It's a big part of this movie, and yeah, no one
It
talks about it.
is.
like it's both. It's their sexual organ. It's their communication method. It's how they pray. It's how they like connect to
It's
the
also
spirit
their
world.
Uber app.
Yeah, they can Wikipedia
I guess
stuff
it's their
with it. Yeah.
I guess it's their smartphone.
Well,
You know, it's the
yeah,
Navi
it's their
smartphone.
It is.
Their organic smartphone. Yeah. Ooh.
And now we're getting Black Mirror here. So finally.
Yeah. So okay. Is there any other elements of the Navi we need to get into? I mean, honestly, I think
It kind of covers it in a way.
Native American Xeroxing element of just is weirdly one of the more successful things about them. It makes the least their situation immediately graspable. And
It does. It does. Yeah. I mean, it puts us in a playbook, and we're just like, okay, I get it. This is what we're doing. You know, okay. It's like they're conquistadors. You know, it makes it. Well, I mean, this is clearly a very easy film to understand in the broad terms.
Was why it was a success, you know, worldwide, right?
Right.
Like everybody gets this, I think, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I want to swing back around to why this was a success maybe later, but
We will never know. There's so many different approaches to it. I wanted to, when you were talking about Jake Sully earlier, neither of you have watched the extended cut, right?
No,
I that's not what they were released in theaters.
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay.
And so like we're so it's like extended one is just on the cusp of 3 hours. One of the, in terms of Jake Sully, one of the better additions, and I get why they cut it, but I wish they didn't, is that it actually starts with a bit of his life on Earth, how shitty his life is on Earth, and you know how shitty Earth is in general, and, you know, why he would want to come there and stuff like that. Whereas the theatrical movie, it just boom, it just, you know, throws you into Pandora, right?
I kind of like Never Seeing Earth, actually.
No,
I disagree. Cool. I think, as much as I do not want this movie to be longer, A Strange, I think that would have been really helpful, actually.
So you get a taste of like what Jake talks to Awa about later. Like, there's no green there. They killed their mother. It just, the thing is, VFX wise, it just looks like Coruscant from the prequels. That's what Earth looks like. But, you know, he is a guy that, you know, it just he's going to bars, picking fights with guys that beat their women. So he, you know, he can't stand bullies. And it's just really just functional stuff.
Okay. Well, does it improve it? Does it improve the movie?
I think that opening, I think that one could have helped. It's not that much longer, and I think, but you know, I think Cameron, like, I listened to an interview with Cameron that he recorded, you know, after the success of the movie, like around 2012, and the way he talks about the movie, he's fully aware of how generic, cliche the basic, you know, plot is. I mean, he's a super intelligent guy.
He made Titanic, yeah, of course he
right.
is.
That does, you know, he's aware of it. But when I hear him talk about it, his reasons for why he did this and that, when I listen to him say it, it all makes sense. I just wish the movie could convince me of that. It's so weird because, like, when he talks about it, like, yeah, James, you're so smart. You're like, I totally get why you did that. But when it comes to the actual movie, like, even the whole space engines thing, like, he addressed that too, where, like, it's not just Native Americans, it's, you know, like, cultures from all over the world. But, like, I hear that sounds amazing, but in the, you know, in the totality, it just still feels like all you did was,
when you see it on screen, it's just Native Americans.
It's just space engines. You know, you could, you know, gather all sorts of different touches from different cultures around the world, but in the end, that is basically what, you know, how they're functioning in this plot.
Yeah, I don't know that with that opening stuff, like, that you need more functionality, like plot beats to be hit in that opening. But I just think that 5 minutes of seeing a, like, Blade Runner 2049 type landscape on Earth before we go to Pandora would sell the contrast and, like, sort of wonder of Pandora a lot more effectively.
Right, like Jake Sully's apartment room is like a little cubicle. His whole wall is a TV screen. You know, just a very dystopian, just, you know, a gray future.
You're selling me on this. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's I'm sure you could watch it on YouTube.
Mhm.
Just those elements. Like I talk about how
Well, but
bad I
Coruscant wouldn't do that, I don't think,
no.
because that is a little. It's not dystopian enough,
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just very gray and neon. There's no green,
Right.
But in terms of just it does the extra stuff improve the movie at all? I don't think it improves the function of the movie overall because there's some stuff that just feels like extra stuff. But there's stuff involving Sigourney Weaver where I go, oh man, like she's actually good in this scene, and you whittled all that stuff away to what's left in the theatrical cut.
Mm.
Like there's stuff like about the she's scarred by the experience of like losing, she was teaching all these Navi children, to improve relations, and then something terrible happened, like Neytiri's sister was killed, and just like there's all this stuff that would enrich the general at least emotion of like these characters more. Like I think it would enrich the characters if not the story, but that's a gray area. But and even the performance, it makes me like kind of appreciate the characters a little bit more. But yeah, all that stuff got just sanded down to like,
Mm. I mean, does it? But you're saying it kind of doesn't change the sort of insurmountable averageness of the whole thing.
no,
It
I don't
sounds
think
like
so. I think there's stuff
like
like it just feels like extra stuff for the most part.
I'm honestly at a loss as to why this movie isn't more effective. Kinda like
Big part of, to me, just to me, the big part of it is just the dialogue. I know like
mm,
Cameron is known for writing clunkers, but even in his like stuff in Terminator and Terminator 2 and his like more iconic films, even the clunkers are like memorable and
yeah,
fun.
yeah.
This one has nothing.
There's
Like
not a good
they're
line
all
in it.
it's all clunkers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like it literally has like Marines are just like, yeah, get some. Like that's a placeholder line. Like you couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And there's like what is it? Jake when he scares off one of the creatures, like, yeah, like that. You better run, bitch.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Oh, yeah.
it's
Yeah, Jake Sully
monotone.
of the
It's
Jarhead clan,
it's
and we
yeah,
got to laugh
it's
about that a few
monotone.
times. Just like yeah, I that's certainly not a strength of the film. The dialogue could have used a pass by somebody else, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I feel stupid even saying like what should have been changed about this movie. Like
Because
it.
like
Yeah,
it
it
was
could
super
it could have
successful.
made $4.26 billion
Yeah.
instead if they'd just followed our advice. But
Right.
yeah, but I mean, what else is there to talk about? Other than why didn't this work for me? And I think
Yeah.
for me, it's mostly down to the design of the Navi and Pandora being, I don't know, just not quite selling me on something.
It never feels entirely real to me.
No.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
It always feels there's a hint of. I mean, it's probably a really good theme park land. I mean, that seems like a proper place for a Pandora. Like it seems like there's sort of I mean, there's obviously a huge CGI kind of quality to it, but there's also sort of a pleasure palace kind of thing to it, like a Ready Player One thing, really. Like it's this place you go to escape, kind of. You jack into it and go into a place where you can have adventures on treetops or whatever.
You remember when the movie came out, there was a story about how there are people who were like now depressed or suicidal because they couldn't
Right.
actually be on Pandora, and
Right.
that
I
went
love that.
viral. But
Yeah.
in my time living on this planet, I've yet to ever actually talk to somebody that felt that way. So was it just like a small message board of people that were obsessed with this, like just the way
Probably.
like you take one or two tweets that were angry about something, it turned into outrage. It's something like that.
That's what I think that is, because you're
Right.
right. I've never encountered anyone who was even in the vague vicinity
yeah,
of that type of feeling.
or like somebody that I never seen somebody that actually like two steps removed. Like I don't even know somebody who knows somebody. Like I've never even
Right.
It's
You don't
always,
remember the wave of Avatar suicides in 2010?
right?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like another problem is that this film is so much about getting back to nature. It's so much about respect for the natural world and our connection to it. And you never
there's
see
none
a
of that on
forest.
screen.
Yeah, it's entirely this CG creation. It is entirely
Right.
something designed for aesthetics. Primarily. And I'm not saying they didn't put thought into why the beasts have giant
Right.
sucking nostrils in their
He's
thoraxes.
put tons.
but
He's
like,
put tons of thought into that.
yeah,
Right, but I think I think that's a very good point for why this doesn't quite connect. Is that like you said, it's all about on a textual level, connection to nature, and yet there is no nature like visible on screen anywhere. And I think part of that, it touches on the Navi's design too, that the sort of neon blue hue
Yeah.
that they went to for their skin tone lands just on the wrong side of like cartoony more than organic, and that maintains that distance more. And it, like I said, that's just the entire aesthetic of the movie seems at odds with that, thematic text of the movie, like you said, and that's another source of dissonance that your mind is sort of grinding away at in the
It's so
background.
You never
it's
feel
so
it viscerally. Never.
immaculately made that
Mhm.
it feels like everything about the movie feels sterile.
Mm.
Like
That's such a weird thing for a Cameron movie too, because visceral is, I would say, his biggest strength.
right.
That's what the Terminator movies, Alien, even like
Even Titanic. Big
yeah,
CGI
Titanic
movie.
makes me feel cold and wet in that last
Yeah,
hour.
yeah.
And Avatar doesn't make me feel physically any sensation.
Like the only sensation I remember feeling was like there's a shot when he's really getting the thrill of flight for the first time, and they're both Neytiri and here like flying down the wall of a cliff. For that shot, I think I could feel like a sensation of speed and wind, but I think that
Yeah,
was
a
it.
little bit of vertigo.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, that's thrilling, that's cool. Like I could feel like I feel like the air conditioner just got a little bit colder in here. Like there's a breeze. I think that's like the most sensation I felt from the movie overall.
You were also in a 4DX theater that was actually
Oh no, this was
giving you this.
back in
Okay.
back in 2009. Like when I first saw it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, this, again, it's this is why I think I'm sure the theme park ride is great. I've heard nice things about
Mhm.
flying on the back of a banshee. That's the whole point of the ride, I believe, and that makes sense. Of course, you're in a CGI world. It seems like a motion simulator premise.
All
That's
the animals feel like Phantom Menace creatures,
yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like
I
like
don't like him.
like they and that was another thing. Like talking about design, I remember thinking like all this effort went into creating this amazing fictional world, and all you could think of was like they're dogs, space dogs, but with 4 arms. I mean, with 8 arms, or it's
Sure.
just it's just
And there's a space rhino that's got sort
right
of a hammerhead
Mhm.
bear on it
hammerhead.
instead. That's yeah.
Well, I
Dragons
mean,
with 4 wings.
I believe they are all kind of consistent. It seems like they're intended to look of a piece, like they all
Right.
evolved out of the same ecosystem, and
Right.
that makes
Like if
sense.
if Cameron, I listened to a Cameron interview about it, I'd be
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, that sounds great. That sounds so awesome. But then we get to the movie.
There's also
I
some
am curious about how the water beasts are going to show up in this next film. There's going to be a bunch of them. That'll
Yeah.
be something, right? We get to see some.
They're
water
going to be
beasts.
space whales.
Yeah. Should be fun.
and probably a space octopus.
Ooh, yeah, that'll be
And
cool.
Space
maybe a space man of war.
Yeah, some
I
eels.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. And maybe there is something that in the water you will have. That's just even by our earthbound standards, more of an alien environment. So you have a little more license to get weird with things
Yeah.
that we can more easily accept and process, without having like, okay, yeah, that's the rhino. This is the wolf. What I get where we're at here. There's also something that kind of nitpicking the function of the sequence where he's first like separated and meets Neytiri, and you get exactly why on the page. It's him getting lost on Pandora and getting exposed to all of its dangers, and so it's sort of a Skull Island thing of he just kind of bounces from one predator to another, and something about it feels very video gamey, and like, oh, here's where the rhino charges, and there's a quick time event here, and I don't know, it felt cutscene to me, like, okay, here's the sequence, and now it's going to give me back control while we run from the wolves. I have to do a little platformer game until I reach the checkpoint where the rhino pops in or whatever.
I mean, that's another thing, is that that's also a contrived sequence, a highly contrived sequence. The circumstances to place him where he needs to be narratively there are.
Yeah. I guess that's a good one sentence way of saying what I just took 20 sentences to say.
But you can see the strings. You can see the manipulation. Even if you can't see the CGI seams, you can see the narrative seams. And I think that's kind of true of a lot of the movie.
And that goes into your comment about just Jake Sully as a character. It's just him. he's a video game. He's the video game character.
He's an avatar.
He literally is an avatar that you control.
I wish that
And
was intended.
which very little. Yeah, I know that's
Yeah.
and with very little to say about it. Like right, even the thing you brought up earlier about like he's basically playing both sides, but he doesn't seem to feel any one way about it. He's literally just doing a job, like somebody playing a his role. Like we need you to do this. Like okay, all right. Like we need you to spy the Navi. Okay, all right. Until eventually the plot forces him to make something. To make some
He's
kind of
got all
choice.
these reasons on paper to feel different ways about that.
Right,
He's got
right.
that they're going to give him back his legs, and that's an enormous deal for him. And
Your real legs. That little underline, it always makes me laugh. I'll give your legs back.
But you're right. Somehow in the execution, it comes off he's like the silent protagonist of like Grand Theft Auto 3 or something.
Right. And you know what's funny is that he's like that for like 3/4 of the movie, and then like at a certain point, when at their darkest moment, he's suddenly holding up a book of Navi. He's like, they just come to get what the corporations, man, they just come to take what you want. And all of a sudden he gets very outspoken, like on a soapbox, and it feels completely wrong all of a sudden. It's like now he's suddenly deciding to grow a personality.
Man, they all of a sudden when he is hyper competent and everyone thinks he's a great leader, that is on a dime. Like, and they achieve it with, I think, maybe the worst narrative moment of the film, which is it occurred to me no one ever thought to fly down on the giant creature. It's just, and they don't even show the sequence. It's just like a zoom in on its back, and it's just like, wow, that was some shorthand. Wow.
Yeah, I remember that was my big takeaway from the first time I saw it. I was like, that's it. Like that's all it took. Mm-hmm. Like you could see it as some kind of commentary about a white guy like completely turning a whole culture's religion and using it for himself.
Yeah, why don't you just do it this way? Oh,
like when he's telling his,
he never thought of going down.
When he's talking to his like, brother, join me, please. And the brother and his rival is like looking at him, and he looks to the big religious dragon going, "Rah!" He's like, what am I going to do? What else am I going to do here?
It reminded me of that the thing in Top Gun about how everybody's so gobsmacked at Maverick's incredible innovation to use the brakes on his plane. And it's like nobody ever thought of this. Even as a kid, kind of wondering, like, what about the guy who installed the brakes on the plane? What did he think they were for? But yeah, it's his great innovation of trying to land on top of it from above.
It's the very Mary Sue thing, right? Like you could take a thing about like Jake using his ingenuity, like some kind of military ingenuity to figure something out that nobody else could, but the movie shorthands it so hard that it feels like a cheat code, like more video game stuff, but it feels like he just plugged in a game genie and decided like I'm in God mode now.
Or it's like we're just gonna skip this stage, right? Like we've been playing for a while.
We got to get to your
mom's gonna pick you up in 40 minutes. We need to. We're gonna skip the training stage here.
I can't save the game right now. Skip.
Well, I mean, this does feel like kids' media is, I think, another thing. This is the impression I had.
Fern Gully.
Yes,
some people are using a lot.
Yes, that was the thing. But I remember when I had an experience like, I don't know, 12 years ago, something like that. I moved into a new place, new roommates. Roommates had a on the DVD shelf. I saw they had the complete collection of Masters of the Universe on DVD, the old He-Man cartoon, and I was just like, this will pay off, I promise. I was like, I loved He-Man. I haven't seen He-Man in so long. I had the best time watching that show. I'm gonna watch that for sure. That's going to be fun for me. And I put in the disc. I watched like 2 episodes and I was like, oh, no, this was actually a very bad show. This is I have, as an adult, this does absolutely nothing for me. This is, I felt bad for my parents for how much He-Man they must have had to watch. And that's what this strikes me as a little. This is a Saturday morning cartoon. And it is just, they did it out to the nines. They spent $250 million on it. It's the best looking cartoon ever, but at the end of the day, that it is operating on that level. I mean, it is, you talk about wanting to spend time, with the Na'vi and how beautiful their world is. I mean, I might as well want to spend time with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and how much fun they're having. It is, I don't have an in here. I don't, I feel like this is pitched lower than me.
I remember we talked about
Yeah.
like that Saturday morning cartoon quality, but when we used it to praise the Avengers, so it can be done.
Mhm.
Like that Saturday morning cartoon thing can be done in a way that like all three of us were pretty happy with, right? And that was just like
Yeah, for sure.
3 years later.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it occurs to me that if there was a way to gather this data of, who were the people who were having Pandora affective disorder, and the people who did keep the torch for this alive, the true Avatar fans, wherever they are, versus people like us that have this reaction of that wasn't bad at all, but sort of over time sours. And I wonder if the pro Pandoran people are generally more animation fans, and the people on our end are more like live action.
I mean, I'm an animation fan, I think.
I'd see. That's why I thought you would. I mean, of the three of us, you would be the one for sure.
I will watch straight up children's animated films and be happy with them if they're well executed.
Like, I remember seeing How to Train Your Dragon, and that was also a movie that featured, was made in 3D with flying on dragons. That one affected me way more viscerally than anything in this movie. And that also is pretty formulaic in terms of a kid's adventure, E.T., that kind of thing. Like it's hitting those similar kind of, its own beats, but it was a lot more affecting. It's a lot shorter.
There's an emotional life in that movie. I'm not a huge fan, but it definitely has more character stuff in it too.
And it feels grander than Avatar ever does to me.
But there's also a distinction I'm trying to grope at here, which is that Avatar is a movie that presents as a live action movie and then sort of delivers you an animated experience.
Yeah.
And I think for non-animation fans, maybe we're more resentful of that. And for animation fans, you're kind of like pleasantly surprised by, oh, nice. There's more anime in here than I thought there would be, or whatever. Right. And you're totally comfortable in that environment. Not you, Jude. I mean, royal you. And I'm also like, I'm not as anti-animation as I'm putting myself here, but I think maybe that is part of it, is that this is a movie that starts out as a live action movie from a guy who's made very iconic live action science fiction action extravaganzas before. And then as it goes on, it dips more and more into cartoon territory. And even if cartoon is not necessarily pejorative for a movie, overall, it's still not a trajectory I'm entirely comfortable with.
I mean, this new one is going to, like, I'm thinking of it basically as fully an animated film. I mean, I imagine,
it's like a fully animated film with like a live action guy just running around with them, just some dreadlock guy.
I'm curious as to what their explanation on that is, but yeah, it's going to be like cartoon with like a couple human moments, characters running around every now and then, even like the sky people stuff, the boat that you see in the trailer, it's going to be CGI, it's all just going to be created in a computer, and that's fine. That's fine. It is an aesthetic, and but I don't know if this is the proof of concept. I don't know that it's gonna.
Yeah,
well, for me, we'll see.
We'll come back next June. You're going to come back next week for with us, right? For Way of Water,
if you'll have me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we got to do it that way. It's we need you to return for that. Oh, before we finish up here, I feel it happening. I did want to mention. I want to talk about Norm for just a moment.
Norm's going to be in Way of Water, right?
Is he going to be the only human presence in Way? I think they're all coming back, right?
He didn't die, did he?
No, not at all.
He didn't. He should have, because I remember that was another thing I was like, that's bullshit. So you don't like, you don't die if you don't, like he wasn't messed up at all. He was fine. He just had a little bit of a panic attack, but that was it. Who I really hope comes back in this is someone we haven't seen in movies for a while, but was big in 2009 to 2010. Dilip Rao. I hope he's back. Right?
Dilip Rao had like this. He did this in Inception, I think.
And Drag Me to Hell. He was in Drag Me to Hell as well.
He was just all over for like 18 months, and that was it. I was thinking like, wow, this guy his agent pulled something out. And yeah, that would be great. I heard somewhere that everyone who was in the first one is coming back. I don't know how true that is. I'd love it if Giovanni Ribisi was in this for some reason.
I hope.
But
Come
no,
back
about
to that
They
shit.
left they left him alive. They have to bring
Oh,
Ribisi back.
you know what? I didn't know because we all saw it in theaters recently, right? The previous one.
Yeah.
They added a line back in there that wasn't in any other version, where Giovanni Ribisi has the last word. He goes like, "This isn't
You know
over.
this is-
This
Yeah.
isn't over."
oh,
And I remember thinking, it's like, did I forget that line? Like, was that always there?
I-
And it turns out that was added for this re-release. Like,
I
it
had
was
that
like
same
added-
experience.
okay.
I didn't remember that being there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember him just sort of like shamefacedly, like,
Yeah, right. That's what I remember.
Interesting. So yeah, okay. Well, clearly Giovanni Ribisi is the ultimate villain of the Avatar.
Well, if he's not, you have to bring him back, even if it's only so the new villain can like kill him off to establish his dastardly credentials. Like, he could be the Starscream of Way of Water, but he's got to be there.
The thing they do with Norm that I find so amazing is I feel like his entire character arc is created out of reaction shots and voiceover. Like the entire thing with him, which is he's a scientist and he becomes resentful and jealous of Jake Sully and his success with the Na'vi, and then gets over that and becomes a team player, entirely takes place in voiceover narration.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
it has no plot function. It has it isn't. I mean, we see a couple shots of him like looking angry at the cafeteria table, or kind of exploding a little, and it just feels like they had a number of different shots of him. Try one where you're mad, and and then they sort of pieced that together in the edit bay because they realized he had nothing going on. Like, there was absolutely nothing to define this character in any way.
You know what his name used to be in the treatment? I think they changed it for the actual movie, but his name was Norm Cheeseman.
God, I hope they didn't. And it doesn't matter now. He will be. Who am I kidding? I'm not going to remember that he was even named Norm 10 minutes from now.
Right.
He's part of this movie that I totally forget.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot from the beginning of this podcast when you mentioned him to just now that was a character in this movie.
Yep. I mean, that seems like a character that should work, right? That should be a fun character, like a comic relief, kind of like, I'm a science nerd. That guy should get a couple laughs in a proper James Cameron 2.5 hour movie.
He could have been.
And that's the type of person that Matt Damon would have chemistry with.
Yeah,
and they would have some comedic buddy stuff going on, and that would work. But that guy's just he's playing tennis against the wall when it comes to Sam Worthington.
What's like he looks just like him. He looks like you. Like, those are the kind of lines that these both guys like. What can they do with that? It's like it's ooh. Like, it's funny that Matt Damon did The Martian years after this, but both movies, like, if he was in this movie too, it would feature him doing like Zoom video like recordings, right, to camera, and like offering serving as voiceover as well, right?
Damon's the guy. I can see those moments playing so well with him,
right? Yeah.
Oh, I get why
could
they
he
wanted
could he
him.
make those
Yeah.
could he make those lines work? I feel like he would have pushed back. I don't know.
He would have had Southie charm. It would have helped.
Yeah, he would have brought a little bit of.
Also, he's a writer.
To them.
He might have been able to.
Right.
Instead of Australian, like a general Australian vibe that he Worthington can't drop. Like
central casting like Australian hunk.
Yeah, it varies off and on, like whether he has the accent or not. Same with Neytiri. Sometimes she speaks like that stereotypical, like native, like
this is bad. Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden it's like, you have a strong heart, okay?
All right.
All right. Look, I don't hate this movie. I mean, I'm kind of baffled by its massive success, but I'm not resentful of Avatar. I'm not unhappy when I'm watching it. I'm kind of just like, why is this so long? Is about.
I mean, yeah. My lesson from this movie's success was that, like, never underestimate, like, never put James Cameron in the underdog corner. Like, we keep doing that somehow.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, he's got some genie wish going or something here, because this is, it staggers me that this is the most successful movie that ever made. It's so weird. I mean, I can't explain that. I have to lean on like, well, I guess the tech and the 3D was just that impressive in 2009. Like,
right time, perfect time for it to
we
come
were
out.
all psyched that Obama was president. It was like, I don't know. I don't know what the hell was going on with us. And this led to like the worst trends for the next 5 years in 3D and shit. And
I mean, the only explanation I can cobble together for that makes any sense to me is very backhanded stuff about how it's just so colorful and so broad that it played to worldwide audiences in a way that, more specific, idiosyncratic, artistic visions have a harder time translating across continents.
For sure. I mean, it played bigger than Lord of the Rings, it has the, I don't know, like, I understand why everyone was like, okay, well, you got to go see it in theaters. That too. I don't get the, like, we got to go see it 3 times, 4 times in theaters, which you got to have if it's going to play like this, if it's going to make this much money, it has to be lots and lots of repeat viewings. And I'm just like, huh?
Yeah. Like Titanic, you can understand because there was the, like, the teenage girl, like the explanation was that teenage girls went to go see Leo over and over again.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Okay. Hey, this one makes more sense to me than
this one has, I don't know, what is it?
So that's Avatar. That's the 2009 film. We're going to come back and talk about the new one, The Way of Water. Do people have any particular hopes for this? I just want to like it more than this one.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
That's really, I hope it actually, like ticks the needle on my like brain or something.
I imagine the first viewing will be pretty fun. And I guess that's really all I really want from it. Just don't make me kind of bored for the first one, let me have fun with it that first time. And I don't know, I feel like I'm coming pretty hard at this. We all are, but like, it's just not that good a movie.
No.
Yeah.
And it feels like there aren't good excuses for the ways it's not good, because it's coming from Cameron, who has done all of that stuff so much better repeatedly in the past.
Yeah.
So it feels weird for this to just bunt on so much like meat and potatoes characterization stuff
and make all the money doing it, like more than any of his others.
No, that's why I don't have specific hopes the next one, because it's like, wow, how would you learn any lessons from this? You can't learn any lessons from success. I mean, you can learn the wrong ones.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that Cameron's tendency to always want to kind of one up himself will, work out in our favor this time.
I mean, the early word is that it has. As I said, everyone will have seen it before they listen to this episode. So, and they'll all have Pandora fever, and they'll think we're giant assholes for coming down so hard on it. But like the truth
the shoe fits.
Yeah, fair. It's weird. It's a real bummer, having watched all these excellent films he's made over his career, that basically, after Titanic, it is just these movies and nothing else. And this is how he's going to be, like, the entire back half of his career is just going to be this world. So I hope that this original film is just sort of a shaky prologue to the actual great sci-fi fantasy epic that is to come.
Like, I just listened to your True Lies episode, and I'd actually like to see him just go back and make just like a simple,
I would love that
action movie right now. Like, there was a time where like, no, we should be doing bigger stuff in this, but now like go back to do like like Sam Raimi doing Drag Me to Hell, like do something. But I don't think James Cameron doesn't have that in him. If he makes something, he's got to go all the way.
Yeah, if he just did some like R-rated sci-fi action movie with Arnold now, God, that'd be fun. Make it for less than $100 million. God, how great would that be?
Especially if it involved him non-consensually sexing a 75-foot wide manta ray.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for Avatar. Thank you all. Rate and review the podcast on the app of your choice. It helps our visibility, and we thank you. All right, thank you, Joon, for coming in for this. We'll have you back for Way of Water. We'll finish the conversation.
Looking forward to it. I will see you then.
I see you too. Okay.